Hey everyone.
Morning, afternoon.
Good morning.
Evening for the few that might be. You're going to give everybody motion sickness.
Yeah, I'll turn that up. So, looks like we've got a quorum. Awesome. Okay. Is it that time, or do we have another minute? No, it's that time. Let's rock.
You can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, we have quite a bit to get through. Hey, Evan, thanks for joining us. It's always good to see Council on the community hangouts. So we have some good fun stuff. We've got a little Casper demo we want to show at some point. We've got some good technical updates. I'm very excited about those. And there's also some good business development updates. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get rocking. First, I think everybody knows Lawrence, but I just wanted to say that we have cemented a relationship directly between the co-op and Lawrence to help us with the relationships between Rolang and the platform infrastructure and the tool vendors, existing tool vendors. So this will be helping with, for example, trying to make sure that there's a space for Rolang and IntelliJ and a space for Rolang and Eclipse and other things. And this is connected to the development that we talked about last week, and there'll be more to say about that very shortly, which is the relationship that we're cementing with Pyrofex. So Lawrence will be kind of at the interface there as well. So welcome, Lawrence, to the team.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you want to say a few words, or?
Let me go later. I want to follow on like I did in the dev stand-up with Michael, because I think that's just super exciting, but I won't, no spoilers.
Okay, cool. All right, sounds good. Also excited because we have a lot of really interesting relationships unfolding. I think I've mentioned to folks here that I've been working with Peter Harris of Resonate, who wants to build a music service on top of Rchain. Peter is based in Berlin and has very good relationships with Big Chain DB and other movers and shakers in the blockchain space. And I've been very impressed with Peter's work to date. Resonate.io, by the way, is also a co-op, and they have several thousand artists already, and several hundred labels. that are members of Resonate.io. So Peter and I have been sketching out what a music service on top of Rchain would look like. And as a part of that, as with many of these other things that, Ed has rightly pointed this out over and over again, as with many of these services, identity plays a key role. And so when Peter was talking to Imogene Heap and heard her ideas about identity, he was, wow, this is totally from left field, and this feels exactly right. And so Peter set up a call between myself and Imogene. And I should say that Imogene was incredibly gracious because she'd just been up 36 hours the night before and still took the call. And we had a very, very engaging conversation. It lasted about 90 minutes. And we had a really a meeting of minds. I was very inspired. But in particular, her notion of identity as a kind of performance event, I feel feels just about right. And so I'm very excited to explore the potential, the work between that would involve Resonate and Imogene's Creative Passport project and some other players. Additionally, as a part of the mix, there's a group called Off Axis in the UK that has a successful gig swapping application, and they when they heard about this possibility, they were quite jazzed and excited. So there are a number of players who are coming together. And again, the reason why we want to do this kind of work is to lay the groundwork to have applications putting a requirement pressure on the platform. So we have to, sort of help them get to the point where they have a crisp, clear set of requirements that are actionable in terms of smart contracts, as well as user experience, that can then help to drive the platform. There are a number of other things that we can do. There's sort of the dog fooding efforts, which we're already looking at. Like I think Mike and Aitan and Kyle and I were speaking yesterday about getting a bounty out for someone to write a Rolang parser in Rolang, which I think would be a lot of fun. And anyone who wants to do that, heartily encouraged, and there'll definitely be a bounty for that. And those are the kinds of dog fooding efforts or sort of, ways in which we can pressure the platform just using the platform. But we also want to make sure that it isn't all navel gazing. It isn't just the platform talking about itself, but it does useful work. And that's where these applications like the music service that we're talking about with Resonate and others have a significant importance for the co-op. We need to, just the short of story is we really need applications to make sure that the platform is usable and performs under load and all of those kinds of things. So that's why I spend a certain amount of my time courting application developers and trying to get them to bring some pressure to bear on the platform. So I'm very, very excited about this opportunity and hope that it turns into a significant application on top of the platform. So that was a good development so far. And I think now, unless there are any questions about that or some of the other developments along those lines, I would love to have a technical update from the team. So if we could just, is Meta not here today? Mike, are you here for Meta, or is Meta here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. Meta, do you wanna give an update?
I certainly can.
Sweet.
All right. So post-retreat, the team agreed to spend a good amount of time documenting, and very pleased to report that we have a lot of clarity as a result of the developer retreat on many, many key items that were kind of hanging out there and fuzzy. So the team has doubled down on documentation. We've seen a lot of really fantastic progress in terms of writing down what it is we're going to build, making a lot of those key technical decisions and pushing the ball forward. As a result of that, I'm happy to report that we are putting together the shape of a Rchain SDK 0.01. I don't have a lot of details about the release as yet, except to say that we're striving to have a distributed version of the compiler and the C++ Rosette, some documentation. We want to package that up, make it available for Ubuntu, Linux, and Macintosh, and put it in the hands of the community and people that are running meetups, right? So it's really easy to write smart contracts in Rchain and compile those and run them on the VM and just have that really nicely bundled up and packaged, so it's really easy for people to interact with the system. We're also looking...
Okay. Sorry, Meta, I didn't mean to interrupt, but concomitant with that, can we... I think it would be really good to get some commitment around a nice organized set of examples that go from the sell contract to the the update modify to the balance to the account contracts. I think if we have that kind of progression of contracts, that will really help developers see how to use Rchain and sort of exercise some of the features.
Yes. So examples, right, is what you're referring to.
Yeah, but in particular, pointed specific examples that are specific to this domain space.
Yep. It is on my list of for the release. Yep, and I will reach out to a variety of folks to get that list aggregated. Mm-hmm.
Sweet. And one other thing. Sorry to interrupt your flow, but
no, it's okay.
While we were on the retreat, a bunch of people were singing Rchain to the tune of Rawhide. So people were going Rchain. Keep those contracts rolling. So I'm gonna put a call out to all the musicians in the community. Whoever wants to get together with me and do a cover of Rawhide, reimagined for Rchain, please DM me on Discord. I think that would be great to put out about the same time that the SDK goes out.
Please send me the link. It will be distributed. I will play it at events.
Perfect. This is exactly the kind of fun we have to have, as well as all the technical fun we're having. All right. So sorry, Meta. I apologize. Back to you.
No, it's okay. And then we're also hoping to release a Void node, which will be a demonstration of the networking layer. This will be the peer-to-peer networking piece that Chris has been working on. He is preparing documentation, packaging, and we'll hope to distribute that so people can play with those pieces, right? So you can create instantiate a few nodes, watch them connect to each other, and see kind of live in action the communication piece. So very excited about those upcoming releases. I've also got Michael here. He was kind enough to join us today. He has a very cool simulation he's going to share with you on Casper that he put together, and super excited about having Michael on the team. So he's created some great documentation on Casper for Rchain and has already got a simulation and visualization that I'm hoping he's going to share with you today. I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Meta. So I guess a little bit of background on this before I show you the picture itself. Is we're working on developing Casper, and of course we want to make sure that the protocol itself provides scaffolding for the kind of behavior we want validators to have, right? So one way of doing that is to simulate the protocol with different strategies that we might imagine validators having and sort of seeing what the outcome of that is. And so I started writing this simulation engine based on the current version of the protocol. And then once you have a simulation, you want to be able to dissect your results a little bit, right? You want to be able to tell whether or not what's happening is what you want to be happening or not. And one nice way to do that is to actually look at the blockchain itself as it's evolving over time. And so that's what I was working on for the past couple of days. And I now have a working visualization package in my simulator. So I'll show you the kind of output that it produces and explain to you what it's doing. All right, so I'm sharing my screen here now. Hopefully you all can see that. So this is an animation of the network evolving over time, or the blockchain evolving over time. So the colors of the different nodes in the graph indicate who created it. So there's 3 validators in this example, and there's then 3 different colors of circles. The one orange circle is the Genesis block, so no validator created that. Then the arrows are parent block pointers, and the red arrows indicate where the main chain is, the one that the Casper protocol has decided is the primary chain, the one that they've come to consensus on, whereas the black lines are alternate forks that have since been abandoned or are still being evaluated under the consensus algorithm. And the size of the circles is proportional to the number of transactions that block has inside it. So the circles represent blocks in the blockchain.
Beautiful.
So, Michael, when you're done, let me know. I just want to add a couple of comments.
I don't have anything else in particular to say about this, unless anyone has any particular questions. And if not, then yeah, totally. Lawrence, feel free to take it away.
So this besides this being incredibly, exciting, I had a meeting this morning with an energy startup that's basically trying to do something called transactional energy management. And it is a very, very similar network model to this. And they were talking to me, they specifically said, we want to understand how we could use Rchain. So building chains and nodes like this in the energy industry is an emerging field. It is just an example of the kinds of opportunities and market-making things that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to share this image with them and get us involved in some of the energy discussions. I'm speaking about 6 different events over the next about 2 months. So these sorts of things, keep them coming, send them to me so that we can share how Rchain can really shape what's happening with early stage companies, changes in industries, like what Greg was talking about in the music industry, which is really, really exciting.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. That's really good news, and I'm very excited. If we really want Rchain to be involved in the kind of a transactional energy initiatives. I've been following this since I guess Consensus got involved in L3. I think it's very, very much in alignment with the stated goals of the co-op. Yeah, I'm pretty I don't know how to say it because it's so important to the co-op. I'm just at a loss for words. The image of a decentralized and distributed energy grid, is one that is a very driving force for me personally, and I think for many in the blockchain community, which is why Consensus has been pursuing it so vigorously. So the extent to which we can use these kinds of communication materials to facilitate that dialogue is very exciting to me. So thank you very much for that. All right. So were there any other updates, Meta, from the technical side?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Well, actually, that's not true. Let me back up 1 second. Sorry. We do have bounties set up for the community to participate in the creation of primitives for the VM. I've created there. I've worked with HJ. We have a pricing, like a reward program set up. I've created the tickets. The tickets are exposed. I can share the link to where you can find those tickets here in the chat. So look for it, and I'll also put in the general channel in Discord. So looking forward for membership to get involved. We have a contributing.md file now in GitHub, which has a link to the coding standards, our GitHub workflow, getting started, et cetera, et cetera. So all that documentation is there. There's examples of primitives that Tim has also created. So there's a very easy pattern for a member to follow to participate in the development of the VM. So very excited to announce that.
Hey, Meta,
awesome.
It's Ed. I know one of the things you're working on is a schedule, and didn't hear anything about that last week. I was only on half the call and so far today, but what is your projection of when a schedule will be announced, or just another best estimate? I know that schedules are hard and that they also change, but whatever the current assumptions would be very good to know.
They are very hard and they do change. So right now, I have to say that I think we have a good idea of what the roadmap looks like. That is exposed on the core overview page that's been floating around on the Discord channel. So if you go to that core overview page, you will see all the milestones listed out with what is in each milestone. So how we get from here to Mercury, where we are in that flow. But with respects to dates, you know, the VM port isn't even completely staffed yet. We've got 2 guys working on the VM port. And if I was to try to even put a date on it, I would fail miserably. Like, it's not even close, because I'm going to double the size of the team in 2 years. And a lot of that is contingent about when those resources come online, how quickly they ramp up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really too early for me to give any kind of dates yet. We're pushing hard to meet Greg's commitment.
No, I appreciate all that, Meta. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks for that question, Ed. That was really.
It's good to ask the question.
Yeah, and I hope the community continues to ask that question. You know, hold our feet to the fire. That's exactly that's what we want. So yeah.
An estimate for the storage layer.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
For the storage layer, do you have any idea on the release dates for that?
Yes, so the storage layer, we had originally announced that it was our intention to release a library. When we came out of the retreat, we came away with some new requirements with respect to the query unification. So we are going back through the storage layer now and implementing the new requirements for the query unification. So expecting that's going to take a couple more iterations to wrap up. I'm hopeful that we can release the storage libraries, maybe as part of the Rchain SDK or independently or both, at some point in the near future.
So I can speak somewhat to the unification stuff. The library was written based on Special K rather than on Rchain. So the unification was done in terms of prologue terms and so on. With Rchain, we want to do unification based on the type system. And the type system for Mercury is Greg's namespace logic. So there will be some stuff based on that. There's also the inclusion of URIs. Yeah, it sounds like there's some water running or something. Yeah. Right, URIs. And so we'll also, at least for the URLs, be doing something like express style path matching that has variables in it. And then there's a second level of unification that happens on the values that are stored at those keys. So the pattern language in Rchain will apply to the data stored at the key rather than to the key itself. So that's how the requirements have changed due to the stuff in the retreat.
So Mike, will then the prologue style pattern matching go away?
Prologue can be used as a format of URNs. So there's no reason necessarily, to get rid of it, but it won't be used directly in, it won't be used for talking about the namespaces that are currently important to Rchain. So there's the quoted process namespace, and there are URLs. There's a meeting immediately after this one. I guess not immediately, but half an hour after this meeting ends, we'll be talking about the details of namespaces and a namespace registry for doing things like preventing other people from listening on your names when your names are public. So issues like that. Now, URNs have no fixed format beyond the URN scheme and the URN namespace, which are separated by colons. After that, the format is unspecified. So we could have a prologue namespace if we wanted to, but right now there's no need for it in the spec.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
So I just want to be clear. The thing is that you can give an encoding of URNs into Prolog, and the question that we want to take a look at is how best to map that encoding out to the surface. So we also should look carefully at the question of whether you're pattern matching against the payload or pattern matching against the name.
In the spec, the Rchain spec that talks about patterns, those are only against the value returned on the channel.
Yeah, but so that's a different that's pattern matching on the payload at the level of the language. There's also pattern matching on the key itself.
Right,
so
which is the special case stuff. And so then there's the question, do we want to add that to the language spec? And I think we do.
Yeah, exactly. And so what this really comes down to is a matter of staging. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's hopefully people. Well, let's give people a chance to ask any questions if they have any questions about this.
I think it was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, good. Very good. Awesome. Okay, so we have a few other updates. Let's see. Jacob, did you want to talk a little bit about the email you sent earlier this week?
Sure. So we're interested in potentially, asking the board if they're interested in more money or currency to help fund development. So I emailed Greg. I think it's been a pretty exciting 2 months. I think since the end of, what was the private sale ended September 28th. And so I want to kind of, help get us over, or just provide more funds to the co-op. And so I'm waiting to hear back from the board on whether they accept our offer. And so it's basically me and Mernal, who's here. I think you've seen him before. I'll let him introduce himself. He gave an introduction in the activist meeting, and so I think it's fitting for him to say hello now, maybe.
Hey everyone. I'm Rchain, and I've known Jacob for about half a year now. I used to work with one of Jacob's classmates who went to Harvard Business School with him when I was at Bain Capital. Let me just run through my background. I'm a computer scientist from Carnegie Mellon. My internships were at Microsoft and Oracle, but after that, I pivoted more into a business type role. I was at Bain & Company for 2.5 years, and then I worked at Bain Capital in private equity in technology, media, and telecom. Also for 2.5 years. After that, I joined a startup hedge fund. We were tiny, about $150 million in assets. Worked there for 5 years and grew it to $1 billion AUM company. And I recently quit, but when I quit, I was a principal there and the sector head for technology, media, and telecom investing. I've been investing in the crypto space since about 2013. I own mostly the major coins, but I co-invested with Jacob when he did the first raise. And now that I'm a free agent, I quit my job because I want to be closer to, earlier stage things. I'm working with Jacob to go hopefully raise a pretty significant amount of capital to inject into Rchain together. Because, we really believe in the idea. And personally, I feel like the one risk really is, if you get sort of into like a funding downward spiral where there's not enough money to keep the developers happy, there's flight, the token value comes down, that can lead to a bad outcome. So having a bulletproof balance sheet is always a great idea, and where we can help to make that happen, we'd love to.
I love the idea of having this member initiating fundraising. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Very good. So thank you so much for that discussion. Thanks for the introduction.
Anytime.
I guess this is something you're bringing to the executive committee?
No, this is something that's going directly to the board.
Yeah, feel free to ask any questions. I invested in the private sale with family and friends, and one of the people who came out of left field to invest with me was Rchain, who a friend from business school put me in touch with. And now we're going back to some of the same people because, I was never looking to invest and run away, to like mountains and go on Airbnb for the rest of my life. I'm not at that point yet. I think Rchain might be because he invested in these things earlier than I did. But honestly, another thing that happened totally out of left field is that Rchain was like, Jacob, I'm leaving the cigar. I'm like, you're leaving? I mean, you have an amazing job. Why are you leaving? But Mernal's really inspired by mission. And so I was really floored to hear that he left what he was doing. But I was happy to have the chance to spend more time with him and see, what he's interested in doing. So, yeah, Jim, I want the community to totally be a part of this. But that's why, I told Greg in my email, like, I'm open to transparency and, whoever wants to talk or ask me questions or whatever, that's totally fine. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And for raises of this size, it makes sense, especially if we conduct it before the end of the year, after which time we have to take into account the 2018 policy that the community voted in. And so and precisely because of that policy and any concerns around that, I wanted to make sure that the community is aware of this and the other activities. For example, as we mentioned, there's a deal that the co-op has been pursuing with Pyrofex since June of this year, before we had a sense of the community's will with respect to the token management. And so we want to honor these kinds of relationships, and at the same time make sure that we execute the will of the community. So that's another reason why I was very grateful to Jacob for his commitment to transparency. I think it really it speaks to his credit, and I think also the credit of the community.
Yeah, and that all starts with Greg. So the credit is all yours, Greg.
No, we can't do this without each other, guy. We all participate in this. So anyway, to me, this is very exciting. Jacob, I might be wrong, but what I got from your email was part of your excitement and growing confidence was what you saw from the output from the retreat. Is that correct? Or is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, just smiling to Ian's comment. But the Dev Retreat video was awesome, and all the feedback coming out of there was great. But there's so much more also happened. We had a member meeting, and it was great to come out to Seattle and see everyone. There's been a lot of great hires like Eitan and Michael Birch. The typical things like the weekly Wednesday updates, the conversation in the Discord, continuing to just have a high level of engagement continues to make me happy.
Good.
So stuff like that, and it's a lot. I think that has been done in 2 months.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm actually floored at how fast the both the development team and the business development work is happening. It's awe-inspiring to be honest. And I think, I'll be really honest. I think this is what happens when people are engaged in meaningful work. When people believe in what they're doing and they derive satisfaction and joy from what they're doing, then we see we see just how awe-inspiring humans can be, right? When conscience is at odds with how we deploy our energies, then there's a natural slowdown in our productivity, and it's entirely, again, I'm just speaking from personal experience, and other people may have different experiences. But when conscience is at odds with what we're doing, then there's a very natural and appropriate slowdown in our ability to get things done. And when conscience is aligned with what we're doing, then we begin to see just how incredibly productive we can be. And I think we're beginning to see some of that here, and for me, it's very humbling and inspiring. So thanks again for that, and thanks to everyone for all their efforts over the last few weeks, last few months. Okay, so let's see. There was, if I recall correctly, we were going to have an update on the finances next week because Lisa's traveling today. So we'll have an update on the financial status, and I think it's gonna be important to give that because there's been a lot of movement within the market, so people probably want to be apprised of the co-op's holdings and how they stand with respect to all the crazy movement in the market. So we'll and at the same time we should be able to give an update next week on the consolidation status, making sure that all of the funds are under a consolidated multi-signature plan. That work has been underway, and hopefully we'll have a good status update next week to give about that. Ed, I was wondering if you wanted to say a few words about holdings and some of the activity that's been going on over there, or do we want to?
Yeah, I can say a few things. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, we continue to explore the area of identity. Met with 2 companies in the last week. Our intent is to get these companies talking to each other actually and around protocols protocols that they will all need. For example, around social recovery of keys, and what my thinking on this has evolved a bit. One was trying to lead these efforts, but what now I think we need to plug in more with the existing efforts. For example, rebooting Web of Trust, and we attended the Internet Identity Workshop a month and a half ago, and to find those individuals and engage them both in the more general community, but those specific around blockchain. So we have the names, and we're opening up those connections. So on the fundraising front, the holdings board met a week ago and decided we would increase the amount of our SAFE. That's a simple agreement for future equity. And so that's pending board approval, Greg, hint, hint. And
Okay.
also our existing safe holders. I talked to one who's fine with that yesterday, and have another conversation on Friday. I don't think these will be an issue at all. We've spent a lot of time internally over the last really month or so around strategy. This is a hotly debated topic, actually, internally. A lot of passionate viewpoints around where the correct focus is and timing. So the timing aspect does have a strong dependency on when we believe the Rchain platform is going to come about, as well as sort of the philosophy around timing. So I'm not going to go into all the particulars around this, but just it's not a straightforward conversation. I'll say that. We're also recruiting at leadership levels. I talked with Minral about this a bit, and we have some external candidates we're looking at as well. And so first of all, the strength of our team is growing overall. I've gotten to know Roland Waters next to me, and obviously Lawrence Lerner and I, the three of us in particular, have spent a bunch of time around strategy and are continuing that. And this all affects how we communicate to shareholders. It's not shareholders, but prospective investors. So lots of interesting ideas are coming up. We'll come to clarity around this and make an investment push in the coming weeks and months. So that's the update for holdings.
Sweet. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I imagine that the community appreciates that as well. Why don't we take a moment to see if there are any questions from anyone with respect to holdings or any of the other updates?
Yeah, I'd like to, if possible, Greg, Ed, and Lawrence, if you're listening, I'd like to set up a meeting within the next week, sooner the better, because I have a few partners that can kind of speed up the process of getting listed, and possibly you can take on more investment, specifically with the holdings, because I know that you're trying to sell equity. Tokens are not really to be sold yet, but I do think we need to get listed on exchange very, very soon and start preparing for the ICO next year. The speed at which this year has passed is just ridiculous. I can't even believe
You're kidding.
You know what I mean?
Agree with that.
I'm so glad someone is recognizing this. It's insane.
As you get older, the time does go faster. So.
Yeah, definitely
Christian,
going fast.
I'm with you. I really want to put the foot down on the gas. There's a lot of opportunity. So I had sent you something on Discord. Just ping me and let's put it on the calendar for either later this week or early next. Or you can join the marketing meeting, which I had sent you an invite to.
Great. That
Christian, I had a little trouble hearing you of just the audio. You're a little bit soft. When you said we want to get faster, did you say specifically listed or something else?
Yeah, listed on an exchange that would help you
Yeah,
with
yeah.
particularly the legal issues with listing the rock.
Got it. Yeah, happy to talk offline.
Right.
We'll say that neither co-op nor holdings is pushing this issue. There's we did have a conversation with our outside counsel about this. Whoever makes representations about the rock to get it listed may also have an obligation to keep the exchanges in the market in general regularly updated, similarly to what in a publicly listed security would be a 10K and 10Q and any kind of exceptional reporting. But there's corresponding obligations to listing if you're making representations to keep updated. So that's one of the things that I think slows down the conversation. But again, like we've said for many months, exchanges and the community can choose to list or encourage a listing at any time. We did have one exchange participate in the private sale. So they're waiting, I think, primarily for representations, including about the available supply and so forth. And those are representations primarily that the cooperative needs to make that holdings can't make. So anyway, that's it. Kind of some of the considerations, Christian. Maybe not a complete answer for you, but happy to talk more offline.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing to me is you're going to need an exchange that's going to help you with the swap to come next year. I mean, they're going to need to facilitate that, because then you're going to have all these customers that are going to have to figure out how to swap, their coins. So, I mean, if we can get an exchange, which I think I have one that could help that initially, and then you can worry about other exchanges. I mean, you need one exchange, dude.
One of my points was that exchanges can choose to list on their own.
Yeah, but dude, not when you're doing an ICO next year, and this is going to be a swap, and you're talking. Let's say the market cap balloons. You have 10x the volume. You're doing 10 million a day. And then all of a sudden, okay, there's an ICO. Now there's all this confusion about who's eligible for the ICO. It's really messy. So you need a partner.
Right. So again, these are since the cooperative is making representations around the platform, around the rock, around the rev, around the conversion process. That nobody other than the cooperative can make these kinds of statements with authority, I think.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah.
So I hear your point, Christian, and I there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying. I absolutely agree that partnering with an exchange to facilitate the conversion from rock to rev is a very, very smart move. And so I'm very much in support of what you're suggesting, and I will simply add that we're having a board meeting next week, or is it this week? I can't remember. And to discuss a number of issues. And so I'll just simply add this to the agenda and make sure that the board is apprised. And
one of the things that exchanges want is a very clear representation on the website of the token creator of the available supply, the policy, whether additional tokens can be created, and so forth. So those kinds of clarity and a combination of the FAQ or possibly on the website could help exchanges feel more comfortable about listing.
Sounds good. No, that sounds good. But I really take Christian's point, and this is the guy who recommended Discord before anyone else. So we should be listening to Christian.
But I just
Christian, absolutely.
Yeah, I just think that if you were listening, I mean, I know plenty of people that want to get in the market right now, and just in terms of just the sheer marketing, if you had a tradable asset right now, not on Ether Delta. I mean, I'm really seem surprised at the volume. I mean, I know half of the people in this room like the money's not even on their mind unless you're like, you're on the council and you're spending, what's raised in the ICO. But I'm talking about the actual market that you're trying to reach. Like, you need to hit an exchange as soon as possible, because if you're talking, I don't know how much you want to raise next year, but if you want to make, that's going to be your X on the target. Like, your ICO needs to be like legit big. Like, I want to capture 10% of Ethereum's market cap if possible. So I mean, to do that, we're going to need some heavy lifters. I mean, it needs to start getting lined up now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I hear you 100%. Very good, very good. So that will be on the board agenda. Any other questions from the community? And then I have one more update, and then we can yield the time back to the community. Any other questions from folks?
Yes, Greg. I just want to make one quick point. We have a workflow bottleneck regarding the FAQ. It hasn't been updated since the member meeting, and there are people working on it. In the beginning, it was me and Ed, and that was a smooth, noiseless collaboration. But now other people, thankfully, are contributing. However, Ed has pulled back to concentrate on the holding, and that void needs to be filled by somebody from the core who can play the editorial role, because it's critical official communication with image, reputation, and legal ramifications. So I'm not saying that I want to be the chief editor, but somebody in the core needs to respond quicker, because we now have people overriding each other and conflicts in the pull requests. So that's something that you guys, I'll dump it on the board, can take up.
Yeah, Kit, thank you for all the contributions in the FAQ. And yeah, I've been very intentional about shifting focus. But yeah, you're right that the FAQ does need to be reviewed, especially, for example, anything related to token supply as an example.
Good.
Did we lose Greg?
I'm sorry, I was muted. My apologies. So I was, first of all, I said thank you to Kit for bringing that to our attention. I really appreciate that. And we'll definitely get someone on that from the core team. So there's one other item for update, and Vlad brought to the board the idea some weeks back, and that it was received with a lot of support from the board, of a governance meeting or a governance conference for the community, with the expressed intent to draft a document that sort of represents our values and our aims and goals. Vlad was referring to it much in the same way that I was thinking about it a couple of years back, as like a constitution. So we could view this as a kind of constitutional convention. And so this received a lot of support from the board. And so the co-op is going to move on this and go ahead and organize one. Currently, I am looking at the time frame around Valentine's Day, so February 14th, 15th, 16th time frame, for those members who want to participate and help shape the governance for the next few years, sort of the direction and this, of course, this needs to be also connected with the executive committee and the governance committee. But the co-op for sure is going to move on this, and so I want the people here to be thinking about that and getting back to us as to whether that time frame is a good time frame for folks. Part of the reason I have been interested in that time frame in particular is because Mukara Meredith, my mother, she is quite gifted. She works with a lot of Fortune 100 companies in what she calls the process of creating group genius. And so I think that a convention around governance could absolutely utilize or make good use of her ability to touch into that group genius. And I certainly know that at the last membership meeting, Jim had specifically, he came to me and said, well, I was surprised that the format of the membership meeting didn't more closely resemble the governance conference meeting that we had in September of 2016. And so some of Mukara's techniques for accelerating group genius would bring us back to that touchstone and those kinds of things that Jim was talking about. So that's why I'm interested in that particular time frame, because I know that Mukara has availability. Usually she's jet setting around the world from Brazil to Berlin to China at the ripe old age of 74. And so it's hard to get on her calendar. But if we could avail ourselves of her skills and techniques specifically for this, I think it would be of great value to the community that's and stakeholders who are interested in that. So give it some thought. Yeah.
Anybody who wants to be part of that process should join the governance committee Discord group. We haven't had discussion there yet about this, but I'm looking forward to it. And the regular governance committee meeting is on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can join then or propose another meeting time. This is exciting, and it sounds awesome.
So,
yeah.
Greg, what kind of product are we thinking of for this sort of constitutional convention? Are we going to emerge from that meeting and say, here's the document that is going to be our sort of constitution?
I would love to have something like that as an aspirational goal. You know, I mean, in some sense, I was delighted that Vlad wanted to drive this. So I'm pretty happy that you know, if let's see what Vlad is thinking. And to this point, with respect to coming up to speed on Vlad's thinking, he's published a bunch of Medium articles now on governance that have been very inspirational to me. So I would like folks, you know, who are interested in this process to also head over to his Medium blog and see see his language, the language that he's crafting around governance and how that might help shape our aims and goals with respect to the Constitutional Convention. I mean, largely for me, you know, in the same, I know that. Sorry, I've got to jump off soon, but one of the things that I said at the developer retreat that has been so fascinating to me is that we don't in this space we don't get to just craft software architecture. It just doesn't happen that way. The software architecture has to be crafted simultaneously with a governance architecture, as well as with a financial architecture. So all of these things are mutually interdependent, and essentially we don't succeed unless we get all three of them going and all three of them more or less in, you know, the right shape. And so in the same way that the developer retreat was all about a kind of Vulcan mind meld, where you know, developers who are working across different silos or different sub pieces could explain to each other and explain to themselves how all the pieces fit together. so that we can deliver Mercury. That was really the aim and the intent of the retreat. And I think we all understood that. And I was delighted to see, how close we got to the mark there. The same kind of thing has to happen on the governance architecture side. We have to have a kind of Vulcan mind meld across the community so that we all understand how our interests align, and which allows us to pull together. And that's really that's the aim and intent for me, is that, and if that becomes embodied in a document like a kind of Rchain constitution, then I think that would be good. I firmly believe in the sort of the galvanizing effect of having tangible deliverables like that. So that would be ideal for me. But I also want to make sure that the drivers of this process, whether it's the governance committee or Vlad or the board, that they kind of set this. Cool.
We might not take it as far as a constitution, but maybe we can do a declaration of interdependence.
I love it. I love it.
Anything resembling a constitutional-ish document in February, we probably need to start drafting stuff.
Yes, you're right. And that's why I think looking at Vlad's blog articles on this will be a major, huge head start with respect to those kinds of drafts. Yeah. Cool. I've got to jump over to another meeting, but I really appreciate, again, today's meeting. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Yeah, one other thing is I'm strongly headed towards thinking about going out to Imogene Heap's initiative for the Creative Passport in the first week of December. So I won't be on the road next Wednesday, but possibly the Wednesday after that. So that may impact how we handle the hangout. But all right, guys, see you next week.
See y'all.
Yeah.